Hello and welcome back. Eddie Radosevich, Bob Prisbillo here from the SoonerScoop.com studios. Stickball report. Getting to the end of this. This is wild as we enter the back half of the baseball season, obviously. And then softball, 2 series left. And after this weekend, they won't have to leave the state again.
Exactly.
That's crazy.
Should we take another week off so OU baseball can get another sweep?
I don't know, man. They're coming off of a really good weekend, though. OU Texas weekend upon us, and all of a sudden you look up Oklahoma with a 3-game lead in the Big 12 standings. Texas coming in this weekend just kind of on their heels, which makes for a massive, massive series. Oklahoma has 4 series left. They play Texas this weekend, then they go down to Lubbock, come back, finish out the home slate with Baylor, and then onto the road to Cincinnati to close out the regular season. Before you know it, we'll be talking Arlington and Big 12 tournament and all that kind of stuff. So really good weekend for Oklahoma going into last weekend with the sweep at BYU. Really good offense, really good offense. Bryce Madron was Big 12 Player of the Week. With 7 RBIs. I think he had 9 RBIs overall over the course of the weekend, but really good progress. And get John Spikerman back a little bit with 3 innings last Saturday in the finale against BYU. Just it's the first time that Oklahoma has swept 4 series in a season, Bob. So yeah, that's kind of where that thing is at as they enter what is going to be a really interesting kind of turn here, because now you are in conversation to not only win the Big 12 regular season title, but yeah, you're back in that hosting conversation. Baseball America had them hosting this week. I know that there's a lot of people. You're just going to have to get used to the idea. Dallas Baptist probably coming to a Big 12 site, whether that be in Norman or Stillwater or Lubbock. So the next couple weeks are really important for Oklahoma to kind of solidify themselves, not only in the NCAA tournament, but moving forward here into certainly, if you were able to win the Big 12 and the way that you do it here going over the next month, maybe you do end up as the national seed, which would be incredible. Not to mention, they haven't hosted a regional in Norman since 2010.
You're right.
I was in college. It's crazy to think about. And I actually remember kind of covering that event. But at the same time, Texas, they've been up and down this season. They come in 4 games out of first place, so it's obviously a pivotal weekend for them. And that's where it kind of gets interesting, because Braden Davis has been extremely good over his last 2 Fridays, going 5 2/3 against Kansas State, allowing just a run. And then BYU last Thursday, 6 1/3, 5 hits, 3 runs, 3 walks, 11 strikeouts.
The last time we were here, we were like, oh, man, this thing's crater, and they might fall off a cliff.
I know.
What, in a broad sense, what changed in the last 2 weeks?
They're on the 8-game winning streak, which is the longest winning streak Oklahoma has been on in 6 years, since 2018. It comes down to, I think, 2 things, and it might be the most self-explanatory things in terms of pitching's been great. They aren't walking as many batters, and the defense has been really, really good. Remember back to the weekend that they got swept by Lamar a couple weeks ago, about a month ago. I think they had
the errors, the walks.
8 errors over the course of the weekend. During this 8-game winning streak, they've had 4 errors, and 3 of them have been committed by pitchers. One of them was a failed pickoff attempt. Another was Kyson Witherspoon, I think, failed fielding of a bunt. And then Braden Davis had one against Kansas State on the Friday night 2 weeks ago. So they've really been able to cut that down. I think that more than anything, they're just getting a little bit more comfortable within what they're being asked to do. Carter Campbell talked about it after the 3-1 win on Tuesday night against Wichita State, was the fact that you have a bunch of guys in the back end of the bullpen that are starting to become pretty comfortable with what they're being asked to do. There's a pretty good idea of who's going to be that guy in the 5th or the 6th or the 7th, into the 8th and into the 9th. Malachi Witherspoon's kind of turns into the closer per se. Ryan Lambert on Tuesday night was incredible. He
Filthy.
had 5 straight pitches over 100, the fastest ball being clocked at 102, and he threw strikes. Like Skip, he talked about it after the game, and he was joking, but it really doesn't matter how hard you throw if you're missing the zone. He was locked in on Tuesday night. So it was a little bit of a glimpse of some games to come. They're going to need to find ways to win close ball games if you're not scoring a lot of runs, which they have over the last month or so. It was kind of a good experience against a team that they had already played twice this year in Wichita State. And that kind of leads into this weekend, because I think that you did get John Spikerman back.
There you go.
We're going to talk to him on Thursday afternoon to kind of see where he's at. I know that there was a lot of people that were probably a little bit worried on Tuesday night when he exited after the 5th inning. That was part of the plan. They wanted to get him three innings last week. They did that on Saturday. They wanted to build it up to 5. And, obviously the next step would be playing a complete game of 9 innings come this weekend on Friday. And I think for him, it comes down to how much pain can you handle in that right hand. So it was good news that he's batting on both sides of the plate too, which, I think that he was so hot at the time that he got hurt on March 16th. It'll be interesting to see how quickly he can get acclimated at the plate. But all in all, it seems like a good problem to have. Now that he comes back into the lineup, what do you do with Jason Walk, who has been phenomenal?
Much better than I thought he would be.
Phenomenal. As a freshman, I didn't realize it. He has 14 in the last 16 games. He has a hit in 14 of the games. And the 2 games, one of the 2, he walked twice. So he's getting on the field. It looks like he's been pretty comfortable in center field. I think it's going to be kind of interesting. And Skip talked to Toby Rowland about this on the pregame show on Tuesday night. They got a little bit of a decision to make because you're obviously going to put Spikerman in center field. Do you want to keep Walk in the lineup? That's kind of the big question mark right now. And if you do, you're not taking Bryce Madron now to right.
Mm-hmm.
It would mean that Kendall Pettis probably sees a little bit of a lack of playing time or whatever you want to call it. I don't think that they're going to bench him by any means, but to think that you could see Jason Walk out in left field on like a Sunday, yeah, I'd buy into that. It'd be interesting if they put him out there from the get-go come Friday evening. So that's kind of the most interesting part of John Spikerman's addition back into the lineup. You look at Jackson Nicholas. It was good just that he was in the lineup on Tuesday night, even though it was just a DH role. But that kind of goes with what Skip has said, too, that Isaiah Lane's another freshman that has done really, really well here over the course of the last couple weeks. He has a hit in the last 10 games. He has a hit in 7 of them. He's starting to produce, and he had a couple really nice plays at second base on Tuesday in the win against Wichita State.
So you love the way the Sooners are looking. What's happened to Texas?
They've just been up and down. I think that you go back to that Rio Grande Valley game that we talked about in the last stickball report. You can't walk guys. I mean, this is the name of the game in college athletics. What are you going to get from some of these guys on the mound that you really can't necessarily say that you can count on night to night? The consistency and the offense is still really good. I think they're in the top 10 in the country in just total offense from a batting average standpoint. It should be kind of an interesting contrast in 2 teams that are knocking the cover off the ball versus what maybe they're lacking on the pitching side of things, which it seems like Oklahoma is progressing in the right direction on the bump. They just need to continue it. It seems like it's progressing, but we've all been fooled before.
What you mentioned Tuesday night, so much of the A-game winning streak has been getting out to the huge lead and then holding on. So how important was Tuesday to just be tight the entire way?
I think it was pretty important, and not just the fact to beat Wichita State for the 3rd time this season, but I think it was important to get into a tight ball game and see how some of these guys react, and especially some of the guys out of the bullpen. You had Will Karsten pitching on Tuesday night. He loaded the bases in the 3rd inning, and he was able to get out of it, and it was kind of like, okay, everything's going to be all right. And I think that the baton just kind of got handed to each guy as he came in, whether it be Carter Campbell or Carson Atwood. Ryan Lambert was really good. And then, obviously on the back end with Malachi Witherspoon. So it's kind of still what I would consider a work in progress. I don't know if you bring somebody in and all of a sudden you just feel like they're going to throw strikes. But I do think that you can rely on a defense that is starting to turn the corner into, I think, what they thought it was going to be here at the beginning of the season. And, obviously, anytime that Oklahoma's lost a game, particularly during that 2-week stretch where it was really, really bad with the series losses to West Virginia and Oklahoma State, as well as getting swept by Lamar, it's really turned a corner. And if nothing else, they're making the fundamental play when they need to, and that's a positive step in the right direction.
Is Lamar ever going to come back to haunt them?
I don't think so because they're so good. I mean, they should win the Southland Conference. I know that I'm pretty sure that they're in first place right now. They've been projected as one of those teams that Oklahoma could get grouped with as a 3 seed somewhere if they were going to Fayetteville or if they were hosting possibly in Norman. Maybe all of a sudden Lamar gets sent back up here. I think Lamar and Dallas Baptist, those are both teams that, as familiar as Oklahoma fans are with them, you're probably going to see them again. It's kind of like Tulsa with Oklahoma. You're probably going to see them on the softball side of things at some point in the postseason. And it's just kind of the way that works. Like, I really don't. The forecasting of like projections of regionals and stuff is so hit and miss as far as everybody's kind of everywhere. Like one I think D1 baseball had them in number 10 overall seed versus Baseball America, who had them as the 13 seed. That's the difference in missing a Dallas Baptist. That's the difference in having to play a Lamar that's already swept you. So it's about a month. You got 4 series left, 4 weekends left in the season. There's a lot of baseball to be played, but to look up and all of a sudden you're 14-4 in conference play with a 3-game lead over everybody else. It might still be too early. Maybe get through this weekend to start talking about, can they really win the regular season title in the Big 12? But for a program that's never done it, it would be incredible.
That's sort of my final question is going into this week. So many times with OU Texas, it feels like OU's the underdog.
Sure.
And trying to knock off the top dog.
Yeah.
This week, I mean, does it still feel that way, or does it feel like OU is the favorite and they have to handle the weight that's coming with it?
I think that's going to be the most interesting aspect of this weekend, because you do have an OU team that is pretty hot right now. They have an 8-game winning streak, like we said at the top, playing very, very good baseball. It seems like when they've needed to get some type of response, they've done it, especially out in Provo, like you said, with getting the leads and then building on the lead every time that BYU tried to cut into that. It's a good problem to have. They've really hit the ball well with 2 outs as well, and they've drove in runs, and that was something that they were able to kind of start the series with on Thursday night in Provo. So is Oklahoma the favorite this weekend? I think that they probably would be, because they're playing at home, and they're obviously 4 games better than Texas right now in the Big 12 standings, but at the same time,
that just feels weird.
It feels weird to say. Skip Johnson's coached well against his former employer in Texas. They've had some recent success against the Horns on the baseball field, which is kind of the polar opposite than what you get with Oklahoma State. So I don't know. It's going to be really interesting. They've shown, though, I think over the last couple of weeks, that this is the team that a lot of people thought they were going to be with the offensive production. And every once in a while, you get glimpses like you got of Ryan Lambert on Tuesday night, and you go, yeah, this team could make a run if you really started to play well, and it seems like they're headed in that right direction. So that's kind of the baseball forecast for this weekend. As we said, Texas in Norman this weekend. I know that they're expecting big crowds for Eldell Mitchell this weekend. I would advise anybody, if you're planning on going down, and it's going to be kind of interesting with the weather.
On Saturday, for sure.
Saturday, and that's like kind of a separate conversation of I don't think that Oklahoma would be too proactive in saying, you know what, we'll do everybody a solid and try to play a doubleheader on Friday. Like, why go there if you don't have to? So, Saturday might be hit and miss, but Friday and Sunday look to be pretty good. I don't know if there's still the rule in college athletics that when a team arrives to campus, that's when the clock starts, and you have I think it's 72 hours to finish the series.
Would be, yeah.
So I don't know what the drop dead time is on Sunday either, with Texas having to catch a flight back to Austin as well. So it'll be kind of interesting to see how all that unfolds. But, unpredictable weather ahead with severe storms in the forecast in Norman. OU softball will not be in Norman this weekend. They're headed to Orlando for their first, for their final Big 12
first
road
trip
series.
there, but final road series ever
it's
in
not,
the Big 12.
Not necessarily a team that they're unfamiliar with. Oklahoma did play Central Florida in the Super Regional in 2022. Obviously, this is the first time around in Big 12 play. 42-4, 15-3. In first place in the Big 12 is the OU softball team, coming off of a weekend in which they go 8-0 against Tulsa up in Oklahoma City at HOF Stadium. Houston 8-0 on Friday night in 6 innings, 10-2 on Saturday in 5 innings, and then they squeak out a Sunday with a 5-0 victory. But it seemed like it's kind of a redundant theme with Oklahoma in terms of not necessarily putting teams fully away.
Yeah, I mean, that 5-0 victory, it closes out a weekend where you go 23-2. And Patty Gasso has probably a 35-minute meeting. It's the longest we've ever waited.
After the game?
I almost felt like I was in football.
Yeah.
It's almost, I don't know if
she had about 30 more minutes to beat Brent Venables.
But, I mean, that's sort of the message is yes, this is good enough to beat Houston.
Sure.
But this isn't good enough to win Bedlam, Big 12, Supers, Women's College, World Series. So there's still there's games where they look like they put it all together, and then there's games where, as she says, we're just good enough to get by on that day.
We've mentioned it on the Unofficial 40 podcast, and I might just be completely talking out of my ass right now. Maybe they're just able to, get out of this little spell that they're in, even though it's weird to talk about once again because they are 42-4 on the season, still number 2 in the country in most of the major polls, or if not all of them. Are they bored to a certain extent with the end of the regular season? That's kind of like my only gateway to understand why they haven't been able to kind of turn it on like most of these Oklahoma teams here have over the last couple years.
Yeah, because you look up and down the lineup, the hitting numbers are great.
Yeah.
It's timely hitting.
Sure.
It's the hitting with 2 outs or runners in scoring position where they don't always bring it every single game, and so that's the cause for concern. And people felt like at the first month of the season, like, they're just kind of sleepwalking through it. And then they felt that lost Louisiana woke them up. And then they played great throughout the month of March. And then after dropping 2 or 3 against Texas, people were just like, okay, they're trying to trying to round into form at just the right time when May comes around. But that's a dangerous game to play.
Sure.
To think that you can just turn it on at the very last second. And maybe this team is good enough. They've got the seniors who've been here time and time again that have the 3 straight national championships to fall back on. But that's why I think Patty's so intrigued by what happens this weekend, because it will be, the last time where the crowd's going to be going against them. And, what Central Florida lacks in terms of their offensive firepower, at least they did last week against Baylor, you lose 1-0 twice. That they've got pitching. So if you're not bringing the timely hits again, it's going to show up this weekend.
The final road trip for Oklahoma in Big 12 play headed down to Orlando this weekend. Bob was over at the stadium on Tuesday night talking to Patty Gasso, and here she is talking about this final road trip.
No, I think we just want consistency. We're able to win games. We're winning a lot of games. We're still in charge of our own destiny. So it's more of, I think it's like have zero regrets as we go through this and finish it. And, look out for your teammate, communicate with your teammate, check on your teammates. Sometimes we get lost in what we're doing here and the expectations are grand and it just sometimes can get really tiring. And they've been doing it for now their 4th year in a row. And, it's hard to outdo yourself year after year, and that's something we really want to just kind of put on the back burner, forget that, and just stay in the moment. Go do this pitch by pitch, inning by inning.
It is kind of a interesting spot, and baseball's in kind of a little bit of the same situation. They've played really well on the road this year, Oklahoma baseball has, and Skip talked about it on the postgame show on Saturday afternoon, just in terms of you're around each other a lot. It's a little bit different than playing at home series where everybody's going out to different houses, wherever they may live throughout Norman. It seems like maybe this would be the right time to kind of turn it on a little bit as you enter a portion of the postseason where you don't have as much school. Obviously, things are winding down on that side of things. Maybe a little bit of more normalcy just in terms of you got a game today. You don't have to worry about anything else. And you don't have any more midweek games. I know you asked Patty about that on Tuesday, just in terms of you're going to get a little bit more practice in.
Yeah, because I thought that might have been key during the last couple of weeks. If you lose 2 or 3 at Texas, instead of getting back in your practice routine and how Patty loves to test them and put them in different situations and see how they respond, you go to Wichita State, and that's one of those games where you don't learn anything.
Sure.
You get some of your
You're
reserves
expected to win by a billion.
And it's 7-0 in the second inning, and then you don't score again.
Right.
So you go 7. So you're upset about that, and then that leads to the home loss to the Cougars, but then you play Tuesday against Tulsa. So you've gone 2 straight weeks where you've had a loss on the weekend, and then you didn't get to do the normal practice routine. And so now I'm wondering, like, how much will this help for Patty, who's old school. She always mentions that. So she wants these days to be able to put them in situations and see how they fight out of it and see if it'll help them going into the weekend.
We've mentioned it before. Patty mentioned it in that soundbite just a minute ago, but you look at the senior class, it's maybe one of the best of all time, just in terms of what they've been able to accomplish onto the field. It's kind of interesting what they're going to do for the seniors while they're in Orlando. I really don't know what the what is planned for them.
Exactly. She just gave us a hint.
Yeah.
Wanting no details.
Going to Disneyland? What are they doing?
Just trying to make it as special as possible because it is the final trip. Because, I mean, no matter what happens, it's not like they're going to fall to the below number 8. You're going to be hosting a regional, hosting a super. If you make it,
you're going to be spending some time at Love's Field here over the next month.
And OKC. And you'll be going to Big 12 championships is right in your backyard, and you hope Women's College World Series, like after this weekend, the suitcase goes away.
You would think, too, that, just kind of a chase for the perfection of what Oklahoma is. I mean, we're talking about this team, and we've talked about it here on the Stickball Report, as well as the unofficial 40. God knows the Crimson Corner has had its way with this team, and you still, at the end of the day, you're one of the best teams in the country, but is it too much? Like, the expectations of what this team is supposed to do over the next month and a half is obviously go win a 4th consecutive national title. The reality of it, it's still going to be pretty damn tough.
It's going to be tough, but you love how Kirsten Deal has responded to the challenge that Patty set forth for her. I mean, a 6-inning no-hitter against Tulsa, and she goes 7 innings, complete game Sunday. If you can get that consistency from Kelly Maxwell and Deal. Now, Nicole Mays had some of her struggles at home, which is kind of fun.
Sure.
Again, we've heard Love's Field is a hitter's park, which sometimes can work against you.
Yeah.
There's been a couple home runs hit against her, but she's still doing pretty well. But I'm intrigued to see if that rotation ever switches to Maxwell, Deal, May. It's been pretty consistent of Maxwell Friday, May on Saturday, and then Deal on Sunday. But what Deal has done as a sophomore is just earned the trust and the confidence where, if they're in a big spot here in the next month, they won't hesitate to go and look her way.
Expectations are high. Here is Patty Gasso talking about just kind of the expected perfection from her program.
We talk a lot about it. I mean, let's be absolutely honest, and I try not to talk about it a lot, but this is the most decorated and the most elite senior class softball has ever seen. In my opinion, for what they have done, I don't think we've ever seen it like this before, especially in this day and age. It's a little bit different. And, the expectation that you can do it every year, and you do it every year, and we do it every year, and then we go about our business. Do it again. Okay, we'll do it again. It's like, is this really realistic? And we've made it realistic. And so the demand and expectation is really out of this world. And it's just trying to keep them grounded and knowing that the outside world really doesn't know what's going on in here, and that we have to really just understand what's real and what's truth, that this is hard. It is very hard. And I think that's the burden we've been carrying for a little bit. And if we can get some of that weight off their shoulders and really free them up, I think you're going to see us be our best at the right time.
I want people to think about this for a second. And by the way, just for a little bit of perspective in terms of what you just said about this senior class, in talking about Patty Gasso, just as a head coach, 2 wins away from 1,500 going into this weekend. So a series win would get her to 1,500. She would become just the 3rd coach in NCAA softball history to do so, joining Carol Hutchins from Michigan, as well as Mike Candrea, the, famous Arizona head coach. But it's incredible. And then to know how long she's been around the sport, to hear her talk about this senior class and what it's meant to the program, it's certainly, we probably haven't respected it enough in what they've been able to accomplish.
Yeah, and it comes with just thinking, okay, you did it last year, go ahead and do it again. Show us you can be even better than what you were. And I think the last month has been an interesting balance of still appreciating everything they've done and still saying, okay, but you know deep within you that you can do more. you know you're better than what you've been showing during the last couple of weeks. So it's been just a push-pull, because you can tell there's some post games where Patty's like, we're rounding into form or starting to hit our peak at just the right time. And then there's a game like Sunday. It's like, we're still kind of, stubbing our toe every now and then, and we can't do that in this month ahead. So it's curious to hear how the message has been changing back and forth to just try to make sure you've got them in the right mental mindset here rest of the way.
Oklahoma 18-3 going into the weekend. Texas in second place at 17-4. Oklahoma State 16-5 going into the second to last weekend.
Yeah, doesn't feel like those teams should be tested. So it feels like the Big 12 will come down to next weekend to Bedlam in Norman. It's going to be a special scene. There's no doubt about it.
Couple of game time changes next week in Bedlam as well that people need to be aware of. It's Saturday game, I believe it's been pushed up to nooner?
To noon, yes.
Okay.
And then I believe
some national broadcasts.
And I believe the same thing happened with Sunday by going to 3.
Okay.
If I remember right.
We'll check back in next week on kind of the situation headed into Bedlam, because, as you said, I mean, it's crazy to think about that. They're not going to play another road game the rest of the year after Sunday.
And it'll be Kelly Maxwell week to the max.
Oh, I can imagine. I can imagine, especially if the Big 12 is on the line going into next week. If everybody, takes care of business like we think that they should, Texas on a 9-game winning streak, Oklahoma State and Oklahoma both on 5-game winning streaks, you would think that you're going to go into Bedlam next week with basically, you win 2 games, you win the series, you're going to win the Big 12. Or I guess even 1 game. But we'll get to there when we need to. Very good. Bob, you nervous about tonight? NFL draft?
Caleb Williams, man.
Caleb
All
Williams.
right.
You're back in the good graces of the great Caleb Williams. He has a smile on his face. Who at 9? Who do you want? Romaduzzi's been out there? That seems to be the sexy
That was
name.
my guy, but is he going to still be there at 9?
Sure. I don't know.
I'm not sure.
It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting to see kind of where all that is. On the football side of things, we've had a couple of items. George Stoyes wrote about the transfer portal. Do we even want to mention the basketball portal? It's not good. Nope. We gave our full thoughts on that on the unofficial 40.
My one is you're going to fall backwards in the finding guides because you have spots.
Okay. Well, it's not the worst thing. They're going to be able to fill the roster, but my goodness, we probably need to sit down when this is all done and talk it out on
we will.
The SoonerSpeak.com YouTube page.
We will.
Oh, God. All right. Well, should be a good weekend on the Diamond Sports, though. Really, really strong performances, and it seems to be everybody is peaking at the right time. So for Bob Przybylo, I'm Eddie Radosevich. We'll see you right back here on the SoonerScoop.com YouTube page.